Good to have you back. We'll be back from the break now. Let's kick start off this hour with our business tip of the day as we await for what next will be happening from the world of business. Now, the business tip says the critical ingredient is getting off your butt and doing something. It is as simple as that. A lot of people have ideas, but there are few who decide to do something about them now. Not tomorrow, not next week, but today. The true entrepreneur is a doer, not just a dreamer. So the critical ingredient is getting off your butt and doing something. It is as simple as that. A lot of people have ideas, but there are few who decide to do something about them now. Not tomorrow, not next week, but today. Because everyone has the same idea, the same as you have it. At times we have like the same ideas for over 100 people, but the only X factor within it is who intends to do it faster, who does it faster than the others. That's exactly what this tip is saying, that the entrepreneur is a doer, not a dreamer. You don't just dream about something. You wake up, do it, execute it there and then. It takes us back to the spirit of procrastination, where you have to, you always push something towards the end, and that is not something that you would wish if you ever want to achieve something bigger. Well, besides that, let's now get our business tip of the day in the same space. Now, the business tip says a leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. John C. Maxwell. A leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. So same applies to the business community, that if you are a business leader, you definitely have to know the way. You have to show the way and you have to go the way. Because as an entrepreneur, the idea is always to create room for people to easily understand that, well, besides the kind of business you're doing, do not only create employees, also create people who will as well start up their own businesses. That way you will know that you are indeed a true leader who is not only focusing on creating employees, but also creating fellow business people or a business community that will strive from your empire. Well, now that aside, let's get into our press review this morning to see what the print media has got to say in regards to business on this fruitful day of Eid. All right, now with the press review, you've got the Daily Monitor and the New Vision. And with the Daily Monitor, the Office of the Prime Minister's staff bounce ethics minister with iron sheet. So you get to realize that the iron sheet saga does continue here. So according to the Daily Monitor, aid set by Miss Rose Lily Akello, who is the Minister for Ethics and Integrity, to return iron sheets she obtained irregularly to the Office of the Prime Minister, are turned away and asked to avail an authorized representative to record a statement accompanying the returned items. This is according to the Office of the Prime Minister. Now, the iron sheet scandal still takes a different twist as temporary relief as Lugolobi gets bailed. This is State Minister for Planning Amos Lugolobi shares a light moment with his legal team yesterday after he was granted bail at the anti-corruption court in Kololo. Lugolobi was on Monday charged with dealing with suspect property of 400 iron sheets in July 2022 and also dealing with suspect property of 300 iron sheets in February of 2023. Now, furthermore, we get to the issue to do with the fate of 1,500 vet students in balance. The Vice Chancellor, Professor Barnabas Nawangwe of Makerere University, says they could suspend registration of all students of veterinary medicine institution over poor training facilities and structures. Now, there's also the bigger one, why President Museveni is returning the Anti-Gay Act to Parliament. The Act will be taken back to the Committee on Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, where deeper scrutiny and revisions will be made before it's considered for asset by the President. That's another one coming in from in here as well. Now, also There's a more detailed report on how Joy as Minister Lugolobi gets bail. Now the Sudan war, government is planning food and relief for trapped Ugandans in there. Now also, furthermore, as we sum up with the Daily Monitor, the Uganda National Bureau of Standards has directed schools to deal with certified food suppliers. All right, that's a very huge concern. Now, besides the Daily Monitor, we now have the New Vision as well. Minister Kasaija Nabakoba have returned iron sheets as Minister Lugolobi gets tough bail conditions. Now, in here, we have a pictorial of ministers who have returned iron sheets from left to right. Minister Kasaija, there's also the Speaker to Parliament, Right Honourable Anita Among. That is Minister. That is also Minister Judith Nabakoba. There is Agnes Nandutu. There is also Hamson Obua, amongst the others. Now, in education, 4,000 students on loan scheme to be discontinued. Why? Detail in here. There's also another report why President Museveni didn't sign the anti-gay bill and returned it back to Parliament. Now, President Museveni has handed over 300 million monitor cash to the NRM. Of course, why is this so? The New Vision has details regarding that. Now, the Ministry of Finance has released 1.2 trillion Ugandan shillings for local government as well as schools. That is in regards to the fourth quarter release for the 2022-2023 financial year. That's the fourth quarter for this financial year, which is ending June 30th. That is the final release of funds for the 4 quarters. In that, there is a breakdown of the quarter 4 budget expenditure release. That is April to June 2023, as Uganda also recorded trade surplus. So that is another report coming in from the Daily Monitor. Now, lastly, rather from the New Vision, lastly, First Lady and the European Union envoy dialogue on cooperation. The EU envoys acknowledge the divergent views on the issues of child abuse and homosexuality and says that this is something that requires civilized dialogue. And however, the EU envoys acknowledge the practice of adult people abusing children, which is horrible and totally unacceptable. And well, that is it for our press review this morning. And now let's head to Parliament, as the education budget has been cut by 80%. Surprisingly, though, now Parliament is recommending more funding to the sector, as the higher loan scheme funds were not budgeted for, as we await for the next financial year budget of 2023-2024. The education budget being cut. What does this imply and what does this mean? Let's have more of this in our business update of the day.
Of course, this was the cutting, budget cutting is across board. But for us, we have moved the considerable distance as Committee of Education. Yesterday, this money came after they had learned that we had issued the summons on him, but we refused to interface with him, the Ramadan Gobi man. Next week, Tuesday, is here. You've had the debate on the floor of Parliament. Everybody is against cutting education. Let me give an example. How do you cut the higher loan scheme funds? Students are already in university studying. They took a loan. This is a contract between them and the government. So where you make a mistake and you cut this money, you are even liable for being issued in court by these students. So what we have done and what we are doing is meeting this person on Tuesday. The information we have is that they had agreed not to cut the budget of education, since it's a main area of concern for everybody. The foundation of everything in Uganda is in education. So I can assure you, on Tuesday it will be bloody, and we shall get back to where we want our money to be placed as a Committee of Education. That have been given by different entities, including State House-sponsored students, plus scholarships from foreign countries, should all be put under the higher loan scheme as a body to determine who is favorable for getting loans, money to study. However, when you look at the type of education in Uganda, it has been placed between the poor and those who are rich. Now, the rich still come to suffocate the little we have put in the loan scheme. But again, government cuts the budget for education, for the loan scheme. So what we are saying is, this money, it's the poor who don't have money to study. They are willing to study, and after qualifying, they pay back this money. And the results show that they have been paying very well for those who have concluded studies and are working. So what we are saying is that we are going to push as hard as possible to stop that elimination of looking at those who are well-to-do families being given more money at the cost of the poor, who constitute the biggest number in the country, for loan scheming. And that one we shall achieve. But fortunately, we are aware Tuesday Ramadan Group is here under court summons of Parliament and police. We shall exhaust that matter there.
Now, a budget cut from the education sector, close to 80% deduction. It is total defilement of the education sector and any other sectors that dominate and depend on education. Because from through education that we get affordable engineers, we can get competent doctors, we can get administrative agencies, and any other sector is entirely reliable on education. So budget cut to education is a direct interpretation for termination of any other sectors within the country. Right now, education sector is composed of a number of challenges. We are having schools without enough structures. The teacher-student ratio is still very big. We are having very many learners compared to the number of teachers. Even the structures are not there. The teachers' quarters are not there. Teachers are almost residing in ramshackle structures. They are moving longer distances to reach up schools. And this one has affected the entire education sector. Wholly and totally, it is down, counted down. However, it is a dismay that the government has gone ahead and reduced on the budget. We need to recruit more teachers. We need to put forward more structures. We need to buy more other equipment to make the entire education sector vocational. So the process of vocationalization requires a lot of money, requires a lot of fund, requires a lot of equipment, computers, tailoring machines, the cookery department, cooking department, is also another component that requires a lot of equipment that need to be installed. The laboratories are empty. The apparatus are not there. So a student cannot study chemistry, biology, neither physics without a well-equipped laboratory. We are moving to interconnectivity to computer, but even schools don't have computer laboratories. They are empty and totally. Therefore, this nasty incidence of considering budget cut in education sector is a total violation of the future Uganda and lack of clear planning for tomorrow's Uganda. I think this budget cut is an interpretation of a decline in the education sector performance, and yet it is contrary to the NRM 10 points program manifesto and its central objective of fighting total illiteracy and total intolerance to illiteracy. But this is a direct explanation that the illiterate rate is going to increase and the idleness is going to increase, unemployment rate is also increasing, and it is a total mess up to the entire country.
Well, of course, I didn't mention something to do with, surprisingly, the members of parliament. I was supposed to actually say, surprisingly, this time around, all members of parliament are agreeing to something of a special cause like education. And, well, of course, when you get to realize that, according to the to some of the details here, the total 2023-2024 education sector budget is projected to decline by negative 2.1%. That is from 4 trillion Ugandan shillings and in the approved 2022-2023 budget to 4.024 trillion. Now, the budget cuts here. The committee recommended that the Finance Ministry reinstates the budget of the subventions under the Education and Sports Ministry by at least 170.95 billion. That was a cut for effective implementation, and not only effective implementation and discharge of the mandates that were envisaged by the acts that brought them into force and National Development Plan 3. However, in response, the Finance, Planning and Economic Development State Minister Henry Musasizi said that the government had anchored 50.9 trillion shillings 2023-2024 financial year national budget on previous. That is when you look at on the various principles, including different expenditures such as travel abroad, that is for the budget cuts. When you look at the Ministry of Education, there is an 80% budget cut on subventions, or the Ministry of Finance, there is 80% budget cut on subventions as a principle, adding that it is being studied. When you look at the other side of the coin, which is making things really hard though, 4,000 students on loan scheme are to be discontinued over budget cuts. That is a total of 4,189 students, continuing students that have been on the government students loan scheme, who are said to be discontinued by different universities following the budget cuts and shortfalls in the education sector. According to a report by the Parliamentary Committee on Education and Sports, the Education Ministry faced 80% of the budget cuts, especially to the subventions, which has affected various programs, including the Students' Loan Scheme. And of course, this was contained in the ministerial report statement for the budget estimates of the budget of the education sector that is coming from the start of the financial year 2023-2024, July 1st to June 30th. 2024. Now, in its report, the committee observed that the Higher Education Students Financing Board has in the 2023-2024 financial year not been allocated 10 billion shillings, which leaves it with an unfunded gap of 20 billion shillings in order to cover the 4,189 continuing students. The board has not been provided with funds because of those budget cuts, and the universities are threatening to dismiss students from their studies. Now, when you look at this, the admission on the scheme of a new cohort of 1,500 students also hangs in balance. When you look at this current financial year, the Higher Education Students Financing Board had an approved budget of 41.1 billion, with the 32.3 billion from the consolidated fund and 8.8 billion shillings from the non-tax revenue. However, out of the 32.2 billion expected from the Finance Ministry, only 16.9 billion was released. This is according to what is coming in from this same financial year. Remember, now we are in the fourth quarter. So in this financial year, the Higher Education Students Financing Board was expecting to receive 32.3 billion shillings from the Ministry of Finance, though they were only able to receive 15.3 billion, rather 16.9 billion. So the 15.3 billion was never received. But also now this is affecting the dropout rates in regards to the different up-country destinations, because by the look of things, Santa Alum, who is the Oyam district woman member of parliament, said the lack of funds for the scheme is likely to cause an increase in the school dropout rates in the country. And it is unfortunate that the Finance Ministry only gives money in the first year, which is some of these students are pursuing science courses, and if we do not support them further, even with their continuation, it is likely that they will drop out instead. Well, the 2023-2024 national budget, if we are to definitely look through this particular proposed budget for the education sector, members of parliament, the legislators do believe that it's better off if we got to give, if we better give more priorities to the education sector as well, because as the government proposed budget cuts to revive the economy, we should not forget about the key sectors of the country's economy, because that way we shall be again affecting the growth and progress of the same. Because some of the other legislators feel the government needs to focus on health and education as a priority, just as we focus a lot on security as well. So education and health should as well be prioritized. And so the budget cuts should not affect these sectors, according to the MPs, because education is the foundation, obviously, the foundation of everything that we do, or is the foundation of the driving forces of the economy. And so we need to prioritize it as much as the other sectors of the economy. Today is Eid Day, and to the Muslim family and of course Muslim viewers out there, we wish you all the best. It did not start up on a brighter day, but it started up with some blessings in form of rain for anyone out there. So after the break, when we return, we shall be trying to understand what is really happening in regards to Eid Day celebrations. How are the business people preparing for this one in regards to the abattoir business? But also, besides that, investment should as well be part of you as an individual. *292# is the USSD code that you need to use today to kickstart off your investment with the Zabo platform. And of course, remember, registration is with your NIN, and in the next 24 hours, you'll be able to invest. The markets on the platform open at 8:15 a.m. and closing time at 3:15 p.m. They are only fully closed during the weekends and on public holidays. Please do note that these markets are fully closed during the weekends and on public holidays. Zabo, my money, my future. Alltex East Africa does remind you to do something new. Well, with something new can you choose today? Invest in government bonds and securities and make things count every other day. Zabo, my money, my future. Alltex East Africa, do something new. Well, you're still watching Smart Means Business here on Smart24 TV. Please do follow us on our Twitter at Smart24 Television and at Smart24 TV now, as you will definitely be getting more business updates. www.smart24.tv/news for real-time business updates, both local and international. When I return, we're heading back on ground, this time around in Bugolobi, to check out the business of the abattoir. How is it? It is one that does seem to be very busy on days like this one of Eid Day celebrations. Good morning.